Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar presented to you by the SAP Customer Experience Group. This is the 9th webinar in the current series about upgrading to SAP BusinessObjects BI Platform 4.1. My name is Adrian Paul from the SAP Customer Experience Group, and today's webinar is about the BI 4.1 Web calculation engine changes. This webinar will be presented to you by my SAP colleagues Pascal Golan and David Francois Gonzalez. The list of all the webinars in the series has been published in SCN, and you may have seen this SCN page already, which contains the full webinar calendar. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on this SCN page in a few days' time. I'll also share this SCN page URL in the chat window later. Now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce to you Pascal Golan and David Gonzalez, who will begin the main webinar presentation. So it's over to you, Pascal, and thank you.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending this webinar. So while you're reading this first slide on the safe harbor statement with the usual legal words, I'd just like to introduce myself. So my name is Pascal Golan. I'm working in SAP France in the R&D and in the Web Intelligence team. I have joined SAP 7 years ago, and I'm working in the Web team since 2.5 years ago as a product expert.
My name is David Francois Gonzalez. I've been working for Business Objects since 15 years. Starting with really with Business Objects. Right now I'm focusing on the Web Intelligence product, and we work sometime on the bugs and calculation changes. So this is, I think, the topic of this webinar.
Thank you, David. So today we are going to talk about the changes in the Web calculation engine. The calculation engine is probably the most complicated piece of software in Web Intelligence. We have a fully dedicated team working exclusively on the calculator. In this team we have developers, we have testers, we have software architects, and we also have people like David and I. We're also running several test benches daily on the calculator. In this test suite we have thousands of tests at different level of the software, and we even use sometimes some of our customer documents to help testing the calculator, making sure that we never introduce any regression in our corrections. So despite this big organization around the calculator, it can happen sometimes that there will be calculation difference between two successive releases of Web Intelligence. And the goal of this webinar is to explain what are those changes and why they do happen in the first place. But something very important for you to understand, and I will emphasize this message all along the presentation, is that these calculation differences are extremely rare. So far, we've had only a handful of customers who have been impacted by these calculation differences. And among those customers, the most impacted one, a maximum of 1% of their reports impacted by these differences. This was a customer with more than 1,000 reports. I'm talking about reports, the report tab within documents, and they had only 10 reports impacted. Simply because, why 10? Simply because all these 10 reports had been designed by the same person who was using the same formula in all those reports. But on the other hand, in this handful of customers who've been impacted, we've had customers who had only one document impacted. So it's very little, and it's fairly rare. Since the release of 4.1 of Web Intelligence, it's even more rare than before because we have implemented an automatic mechanism which will modify the formula on the fly when migrating documents from a previous version of Webi. And I will talk later on about this automatic mechanism. If despite all these reassuring words, you're still in doubt and you think you could have some documents impacted by these calculation changes, then you can ask the SAP Consulting to help you identify which of your documents are indeed at risk, if any. So now, what are these different calculation changes which have been introduced in Webi? Well, basically there are three categories of changes. The first category is fairly simple. It's when we have corrected some error code. You've probably seen this error code before in your documents, such as the hash unavailable or hash computations. And those keywords appear in documents when the calculation engine cannot compute the result of a particular formula, due to the context or to the missing value from the database. A very famous example of such a message is, for instance, the hash2 refresh that we often get on delegated measure, and but for most of the time, or most of the time, these messages or keywords are justified, but it can happen sometimes that they are not justified, and I will give you an example of such a non-justified keyword later on. The second category is actually the most frequent category we can see. Those are the correction on the wrong result of a formula. It's when we have found that a formula would not give the right result, and we have corrected this formula, and consequently in documents where the error was not had not been noticed before, at the following release, when the fix was delivered, then of course this formula would give a different result than before, and those differences appear like calculation changes. The third category is behavior adjustment. We sometimes do behavior adjustment in the calculator, very rarely, very precautionously. We don't like to do that because we know that this is going to impact some of our customers. But we are kind of forced to do this to keep a consistent logic within the calculator. As I said, the calculator is very complicated. There are many possible contexts of calculation depending on the dimensions, the measures which are used, the implications of the formulas, whether the measures are delegated or they computed by Webi. And because of all these different ways to get calculation result, if we don't keep a very consistent logic and if we tolerate exception, then sooner rather than later it will become impossible to maintain the calculator. So we have to be very strict with the way the calculator works to make sure we don't tolerate any exception, make sure that we can keep maintaining the best way as possible. And that's why we do this adjustment. Again, I will give you an example of such a behavior adjustment. So if we look at these different categories, the first one obviously will have no impact on your document if these documents don't show the keywords, and if they had this keyword before and then after you get the proper result, I'm sure you'll be happy about it. So it's not a negative impact. Regarding the two other categories, those indeed may impact documents, and you could come once you have migrated your documents into 4.1, then you could see different results than before. But we have kept an up-to-date list of these documents, of these changes, sorry, in a public document which is on the SAP community network. I will show you this document at the end of the presentation if we have time, but feel free to go and look at this document already if you want. So let's look at some example of these different categories. For the first category, change due to correction on an error code. A typical example was with the hash unavailable tag, which would appear with delegated measures in tables where we had a dimension here used to build a URL there. And before, for some reason, this would give a hash unavailable on the measure, which obviously is was the wrong behavior, because there's no reason why it should be hash unavailable in that case. So we've corrected this. This was a bug, and since then we now have the proper value of the measure, whether they're delegated or not. In a second category, a very well-known example is on the week function. The week function in the calculator is used to give the week number according to a date. And there was a bug for a particular date, December 31st, 2012, where it would give back week number 53 instead of week number 1. So again, this was a bug that we have corrected, and for customers who were using this function and who had some results in their documents based on these on the result of this particular function, then they might have seen some behavior change once the fix was released for that function. But again, this was due to a bug that we had to correct. And so we can always explain those sort of behavior change and help you to give you workaround sometimes when it's possible. Category 3, behavior adjustment. One of these examples is on the aggregation function on the merge object. On merge object, what happened for this aggregation function, for any aggregation function, actually it could be count, min, max, whatever. When it was applied to an object used in a merge object, then the aggregation function was computed on the merge object, or actually the value set of the merge object, instead of the value set of the object itself. You see, this is not the right behavior, since in the Webby calculation engine, we can, in the formula, we can always, as a report designer, we can always specify whether we want to use the merge object or an object used in the merge, and there's no reason why the calculator should assume automatically that we want to use the merge object instead of the merge of the object itself. So this is one exception that we have corrected, and now the new behavior obviously is that the function will be computed only on the object. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, in 4.1 SP3, we have implemented an automatic formula rewrite mechanism working on in WebI when we import a document from a previous version of WebI. So what this mechanism does is that it first checks the version of the document which is imported in WebI because it doesn't run on every older version, but on very specific version. And then for this specific version, it will scan the document to find specific patterns of formulas which are known to have shown some behavior change between versions. So this is a very specific mechanism. It doesn't work always on not on all documents, and if your document doesn't have this pattern, then it will do nothing. But if it finds such a pattern in one of your documents, what it will do is it will rewrite or actually modify the suspicious formula in your document, such as to make sure that once imported, this formula will give you back the same result as before. So it's all automatically done. And something I want to make clear is that it is the document content which is modified with this mechanism, and not the calculator which would change its own behavior. So what does that mean is that once you save your document in version in WebI 4.1 SP3 and newer version, once you save your imported document, then it will keep these modified formulas if there's any, of course. And so the next time you open that document, then the mechanism won't have to be run again. So I'm not going to show you the different rules which have been implemented in this mechanism. So there are so far 4 rules in this mechanism. For the 4 behavior we have identified which can be automatically modified this way. The first of 3 rules were implemented at the first release of this, at the first implementation of that mechanism in 4.1 SP3, while the 4th rule was implemented in a newer version in SP3 patch 3. So this is to say that this list could be extended in the future with more formula patterns as we find them. At the moment, there are only 4 of them. It's very little, and as you're going to see, it's only on very specific versions of WebI. And so those 4 patterns so far are a pattern on the where operator using a dimension as a parameter in a condition. We have 2 patterns on running calculation, one on a section, the other one with a reset condition in cross tables, and the third one is on a merge object. The aggregation on which is done on merge object. That's the example I've used in the category, in the third category of behavior change. So I'm going to go through these 4 rules now and show you what they do, how they work, and on which version of WebI they are executed. So the first rule on the where operator. So it's not the usual where operator. It's very specific. It has to be on the we're using a dimension in a formula. So we have an example here where we have the where with a formula using the data provider type, data provider, etc., and quarter, which is our dimension. So that's the first part of the pattern. The other part is that it has to use a condition on the measure. And this is what we have here in this example. We have revenue, which is our measure, and the condition, which is in year. And so this is the overall pattern. We have a formula, max, with a measure and a condition on that measure, and a where operator to modify the context using the dimension in the formula. So previously, the dimension would be used to modify the context of the calculation of the measure, which is not the right behavior. It shouldn't happen. And so we have modified this behavior to keep it consistent with the logic of the calculator. So the way to the way to make sure that the formula in a previous version would keep back the same result now as they did before is that we simply change the formula so that we add the quarter, the dimension into the condition of the measure here to make sure it's taken into account, and we also add it into the formula computing this measure. You can see quarter here again at the end of the formula. So this way, when the formula here is modified with a quarter added here and there, we get exactly the same result as before. And this is done automatically by the formula rewrite mechanism on this version of documents. Documents coming from XI 3.1, before SP3 Fixpack 6, SP4 Fixpack 1, and SP5 Fixpack 1. It will be also executed on BI 4.0 for documents before SP5. So that's for the first rule of this mechanism. Second rule on the running calculation in section. It can be any running calculation as long as it is within section. So, for instance, I took here as an example a running sum on sales revenue, the usual objects from eFashion, in section based on the dimension called state. So what would happen before is that the running sum would be reset, or the running calculation in general would be reset for each new instance of the section. And there's no reason to do that, because in a Webby calculation engine, we have a parameter which tells when to reset the running calculation. So we've changed this behavior to make it consistent with the logic of the calculator, and now the running calculation won't be reset at each new section value. But for those documents where we had a different behavior, we have we rewrite or modify the formula so that it will reset again on each new value of the section state here. And so it's very simple to do, just to have the state as the reset the reset context here, so that the running sum will reset every time we have a new value for the dimension state. And so this rule is applied on a single version, or not a single, but a very old version of Webby, which is XIR2. So for you who have XIR2 documents and you want to migrate on to XI 4.1, you might come across this formula, this rule. The third rule is the rule on the example I have used for the third categories of behavior change. It's on the aggregation functions on objects used in a merge. So as I explained previously, so there was a wrong behavior on the calculator where the aggregation function would be applied to the merge object instead of the merge itself. So typically here in the example we have a function count on the dimension called lines, where lines would be used in a merge object. And here we want the count of the line, the object itself, and not the merge object. And so this behavior has been changed to stay in line, consistent with the logic of our calculator. And what we have done to documents where the behavior was different, to make sure that once we migrated into 4.1, the result would be the same, we have created this specific or this ad hoc function called the use merge, which will force the calculator to use the merge value of the dimension of the here lines instead of the object itself. So you won't find anything in the documentation about the use merge function, because this function is not useful outside the context of the formula rewrite mechanism. If you want to use the merge object, then obviously you just pick that object into the object panel instead of the object itself. And so the rule is applied here for on XI 3.1 documents for documents before SP3 Fixpack 2. The most recent rule is again on running calculation with reset context in cross table. In WebI, the running calculation in cross table, they use a Z pattern, and there was a bug before on this with this particular pattern with the reset context. The running calculation would be executed column after column in end pattern instead of the usual set pattern. So we have corrected this exception to make sure that the set pattern would be used again as usual. And for the documents from a version where it was the other pattern which was unfortunately used, we have created this parameter here called force call, which will force the calculator to use the end pattern instead of the end pattern when running the calculation in a cross table with a reset context. So again, this is not a parameter which is documented in the calculation formula guide, simply because we already have parameters to control whether the running calculations are done in columns or in rows. This one was created simply to show that the formula has been modified in a migrated document. So if you come, and you can see it, I mean, once you have migrated the document showing that pattern, and you look at the formula within that document, then you could come across such a formula with the force call parameter, meaning that it has been modified to keep the previous behavior. So this fourth rule is applied on the following WebI version. BI 4.0 in SP2 patch 20 and 21, SP5 on all versions, SP6 before patch 5 and SP7 at the only on the RTM version release. It's also the only rule which is applied on WebE 4.1 documents, and that's for documents SP1 documents before patch 2. So these were the 4 rules implemented in this automatic formula rewrite mechanism. To finish this presentation with the few key points for you to really keep in mind. First of all, as I said before, these changes are very rare. You've seen the previous slide that they don't occur on every version. They occur on the very specific patterns in specific conditions. So don't panic when you migrate your document to 4.1. It's very unlikely that you will come across such a calculation engine change. On the other hand, you can always check the document we have published on the SCN. Look at the list of the changes which have happened across the different release. Check if any of your document shows a formula which is documented in this document. And if you still in doubt, go and ask SAP Consulting to identify if any of your documents could be impacted. Nevertheless, if you spot a difference, calculation difference, after you have migrated to WebE 4.1, then first check the SAP notes to make sure, to see if it's a known issue. And if it's not a known issue, then of course contact SAP support and to create a ticket. I briefly mentioned that, I'd like to finish on that. I briefly mentioned it at the beginning of this presentation. We sometimes use customer documents in our test suite. And so if you're interested to give us some of your documents, important documents that we could use in our test suite, then please feel free to do so and contact us, and we'll be happy to use them. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope it was not too obscure or complicated. The calculation engine is not the most fun part of WebE, but it's very important for you to get the message that there's normally nothing to worry about migrating your documents to WebE 4.1 regarding this calculation engine. So I'm going to show you briefly the document we have published on the SAP Community Network. Here we are. So the latest version was checked in very recently by myself, actually. That was on October 13th. So you have here the table of contents with all the changes which have happened between release since XI3, XI3.1, XIR2 in 4.1. And for each of these functions, there's a section below explaining. For instance, that's the last one we have documented here on the ranked by option, which has been reported to us by one of our customers, and that we have corrected since then. And so that's a very comprehensive document. You have here, for instance, the problem I've mentioned before on the running calculation, the aggregation on the on the individual objects inside merge objects, etc., etc. So whenever possible, we give you a workaround for this behavior change. So that's it for this document. I think now we can go through the. First of all, thank you for your attention, and I think we can go now through the questions and answers. So if you want to use the chat or go online, feel free to do so.
Thank you, Pascal. And again, as Pascal said, please feel free to submit any questions. This is your opportunity to ask several of the foremost BI4 upgrade experts using the chat facility. We'll wait a couple of minutes for any coming questions. There are a couple of questions being entered.
Maybe to answer one question from Jagadish about the different pattern we found for a specific customer. I'll say, Pascal, the pattern were about aggregation, where, for each, so in very complex report. So right now, as we say, we know that we have some pattern like a running sum with reset, some aggregation where for each who can, in specific condition, create changes between different versions.
Okay, thanks. And we're still waiting. Looks like Peter and Vinay are typing some questions. A question from Peter. It appears that the formula rewrite can distinguish the migrated document. Once we save the document in BI 4.1, the automatic formula rewrite will stop working? Question mark.
At the moment, yes. I'm saying at the moment because at the moment the formula rewrite mechanism was implemented in 4.1 SP3. So it will modify the formula once they are found, once the pattern is found in a particular document migrated from a previous version. And once you save that document in 4.1 SP3 and newer version of WebI, then it will keep the modified formula. So it doesn't need to be executed again if you open that document again, which is now WebI 4.1 SP3 or newer version of the document. Now, what could happen in the future is that we could maybe come across another pattern that we would need to detect in a more recent version of WebI, and therefore we could, again, through this mechanism, then once the document from WebI 4.1 SP3 or newer would be migrated to this newer version of WebI, then the mechanism could run again to detect this new pattern we would have found. But that's not the case today. It's just to say that this is something we can keep on modifying or improving release after release if we come across new patterns, which is not the case at the moment, but that could happen.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess he can respond in the chat. A question from Vinay. We're planning to upgrade from BI 4.1 SP2 patch 6 to BI 4.1 SP4 patch 3. Are there any major challenges that we can come across from the WebI side? I'm not sure if that's a general question or from the calculation engine.
Well, I guess it's from the calculation engine, and regarding calculation, I think the best way to check that is to go on the SAP community network and check the document I've shown you and see if there's anything regarding this specific version. I don't know them exactly. I mean, all of them on top of my head, and see if there are formula with a pattern matching what you have in your document.
Okay, thank you. And the question from Bhavesh.
About this question, just we have a bug in SP3 and in SP4, so BI 4.1 SP3 and BI 4.1 SP4, concerning the ranking. So it's a really specific also ranking. This is a bug. This is not a calculation changes, but this is a bug, and this one will be fixed in SP3 BI 4.1 SP3 patch 7 and BI 4.1 SP4 patch 4. But we will add this information in the website. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Question from Bhavesh. Have you seen any issue with big number values such as billions and trillions? We have seen such behavior when one of our customers migrated from XIR2 to XI3.1 in the past.
Not myself. I've never seen such problems when migrating to WebI 4.1. We have limitations on the precision of the numbers in the calculator, but those limitations were already in the previous version of WebI, so there's no change here. I'm not aware about issues like this when migrating to 4.1.
Okay, so if Bhavesh has any further questions, perhaps he can write in the chat. So, question from Anne-Marie, which I think Mareline has answered. If you do not save a document, does that mean it will modify the formula every time you refresh the document? And Mareline has answered, yes, changes are only kept if documents are saved, not only for the formula rewrite, but also to adopt a new WebI format. So
I think the question from Anne-Marie is about refresh the document. The formula rewrite mechanism works when you open the document. So it will keep in memory the modified version of the document. If you don't save it, then you won't save these modifications, and next time you open that document, the mechanism will execute again. But as long as you keep the document open, then the formulas are modified, and whether you refresh the document, it won't execute again.
Okay, thank you. And the question from Peter, which I think Mareline has answered as well. What if we don't want the automatic formula change anymore? Do we have to manually change the formula definition inside the individual WebI document?
Well, I'd like to understand the question better, because if you don't want, let me read the question again. What if we don't want the automatic formula change anymore? What does that mean exactly? Once the formula has been changed, you don't want to be changed anymore, or you don't want the formula to be changed at all? I'm not sure to understand the question, actually.
Okay, I think Peter's retyping it. So another one from Bhargava, where we migrated the report from 3.1 SP6 fixed patch 6.2 to 4.1 SP4 patch 3. In that report, we are using the force merge function. We have the same function in 4.1. Also, we have some calculation errors on the migrated document. Question on the force merge function, they're still seeing some issues, it seems.
It's possible. I mean, we have bugs in the calculator like in any other piece of software. So if you think there's a bug here, then go to SAP support and create a ticket, and we'll investigate, of course.
So a question from Shankar: are there any new aggregate functions or context-related functions that have been introduced apart from the existing functions?
You mean in 4.1? I guess in 4.1. It's difficult to say.
I guess look at the release documentation. There might.
Yes, exactly. The best way to find out is to look at the release documentation. The thing is that we keep improving Webby, and we introduce new functionalities and improvement here and there, and it's always difficult for us to remember exactly in which version we have introduced which improvement.
Yeah,
sorry.
Maybe that might be a link from your document, so maybe look in that one.
But I think you're right. The release notes are fairly comprehensive, usually on every release, and so if you look at those release notes, then you should be able to find out whether something has been introduced.
Okay, thank you. A question from AJ Gupta, he wants to know if there's a way to force the N rule in the running sum using cross type instead of enforcing the Z rule, the Z rule.
Yes, in every running calculation, you have a parameter. I think it's the second position parameter.
Yeah, it's
called call, COL, which tells the running calculation to run in column mode rather than in row mode. Check the documentation on the formula. It's on the SAP website. And it tells you every possible parameters for each function, and this one is fully documented.
Okay, thank you. And a question from another question or re-question from Peter. If we don't want the automatic formula rewrite happening to the unmigrated document from old versions of Webby, do we have to open the document and individually change the functions forced on by the automatic rules?
In fact, if we created this function, it's by purpose.
I mean, it's to keep the same behavior. So
if you don't want this function, it's like you will have different. You may have for different patterns. You may have different values. Is it the purpose? I'm not clear on this question. So if you don't want to do the rewrite automatically, it's possible. You will have just to remove one file, the XML file, with it checking the formula, and you won't have any formula rewrite. But in this case, you will have trouble.
Yes. It's kind of a risky thing to do. Huh?
Yeah, so perhaps if Peter can clarify that there's an opportunity here. Marilyn has also responded, why would you want to trigger calculation differences? So perhaps we'll get some clarification on. I think Peter's typing again. The question from Dan, is there a way to list all the reports that the auto rewrite will interfere with?
No, there isn't any way, unfortunately. But as I said, the consulting, SAP consulting can help you to list, to make a list of the documents which could be impacted. But there's no 100% way to be sure that they will be impacted or not.
And so we don't have any tool saying that the report will be rewrite.
Okay, thank you. And Peter is typing in, I assume, an update to his question. Okay, so from Peter, just to understand the limitations of the automatic rule, once the rule is applied onto the migrated document, can we lose the rewrite if we choose to?
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you choose not to save the documents once it's been open in 4.1, then you will keep the original document. It won't be modified. So I think that generally the best way to do that, if you don't want your documents to be modified, just keep a copy of your documents, and then and this way you always have a saved copy somewhere.
So Marilyn has responded, I think, to Peter, but that will have a negative impact on performance. It is recommended to have docs stored in the new format to unload the Webby engine with an overhead of old
Yeah.
fields.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
And Marie's the question is, but if you don't save the document, do you see the new result on refresh?
As I said, the formulas are modified when you open the document into WebDB 4.1 SP3 and newer versions. So at the moment where you open the document, then the formula are modified on the fly when you open it. And if after that you keep the document open and you refresh the data, then of course they will use the new formula, if any. And so you can always go into the document and check the formula and see if they've been modified or not.
Okay, and from Nidal, does the user get any message when the rewrite formula function is invoked?
No, it's fully transparent.
Okay, I guess that's clear enough. And Merline has clarified to Nidal, no, would you really want a user to be notified if messages are triggered?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it could be difficult to understand for the end user.
Yeah, that's a good point, Merline. So, okay. One last chance for anyone to ask any questions. Otherwise, we will be concluding this webinar. So I'll give it just another 10 or 15 seconds to see if anyone is actually entering any questions. So doesn't look like it. So I'd like to thank you, everyone, for your attendance, and thank you very much, Pascal and David, for presenting. A recording of this webinar will be available in a few days' time from the SCN webinar calendar page that I showed in the chat window. And contacting you soon with email invitations for the next webinar. Well, it looks like we've still got questions coming in. So I'll give one final chance. Okay, these look like just like thank you. So.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and stay tuned for the next invitation, which should be next week, and you will be informed as usual. Oh, final question. Sorry. From Nidal. Would it be a solution to put messages to the auditor for rewriting a formula?
In fact, we have this information in the logs, but we can think about that, yeah. We can have an idea. We can, yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay, good, yeah, something.
It doesn't mean we committed. We are going to think about it.
Okay. And Merline is responding in similar fashion. So, if that is the last question, well, once again, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Pascal and David, and we will be in touch soon.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.